thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Pleasure.
And talking about your new album, HUGO.
Mm-hmm.
Your last record, Not Waving But Drowning, was released in 2019.
Yeah.
And as we all know, a lot has happened since then, like Brexit, COVID, Black Lives Matter, Afghanistan, everything, Ukraine. So I want to know which topics have had a particularly strong influence on your new album. What would you say?
I mean, probably all of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a collection of the times. I think, there was a lot going on for me personally, and a lot going on, outside my house and outside my head, socially, politically. So it would be impossible to not be affected. But yeah, I felt quite lucky to be able to have the outlet to write music throughout the entirety of the lockdown and all these changes, Brexit, the BLM marches, and being able to have these really quite profound and for me, like some of the first times I ever got to have some of these conversations with my peers, black friends, white friends, friends like me in the middle. So yeah, I think I just felt very lucky to have something to get it out of my head, because I know that's not the same for everyone. So.
Yeah, and I felt like racism is a huge topic on the new album, and I feel like it's maybe a topic that has always been present in your songs, but not as strongly or not as directly as in this record. So why did you decide to allow space for your anger now, or to discuss this topic now?
Yeah, I guess it's funny, because when I was making it, I wasn't really thinking about this, topic of race and my own identity, of being mixed race and where I fit in the world. But I guess I was just going through it so much over the course of lockdown, a lot of reading, a lot of conversation, a lot of documentaries. I was reconnecting with my father quite heavily as well, and he's black, obviously. So, we were having conversations, and I was beginning to feel, I think over the course of lockdown, I was beginning to connect with a culture that I hadn't ever connected with before, because it had never been shown to me. And then through connecting with it, I felt more angry, I guess, because I was like, hey, this is actually me. Wait a minute. So the things that people are saying, they're saying it about me. What, like I'd always felt so removed, because sometimes when you're mixed race in the UK, like people say, oh, you're not this, you're not, you don't feel like anything.
Yeah.
So you're kind of
don't fit in like in either
you're
culture.
Nothing, basically. Yeah. And because of that, you can also be anything. But yeah, so it was, I don't know, it wasn't really a conscious decision. It was just, it was just what I was writing.
Yeah.
It's what I was proud of, So.
And for the music video of your new song Georgetown,
Yeah,
you went to Guyana with your dad, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was incredible, yeah. That was his first time.
And for you?
His first time ever going, and I'd been once before. But he had never been, he was born in the UK. So, my grandmother moved from Guyana when I think when my auntie was very young, or just before she was born. So yeah, like it was crazy to see, because for me, I always wanted him to teach me about Guyana, right? And for him to show me like my black ancestry and my heritage and my culture. It actually was me
showing
that
him
actually
this side.
taught him, which was quite a beautiful thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in the music video for your single Hate, we see you driving a car while at the same time attacking yourself from the backseat.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, why did you present your anger in the video as like an internal struggle? Because I feel like the song is actually about hate towards society or towards like outwards. So why did you present it as an internal struggle?
I think because that's where the anger is, because anger is useless essentially past like 20, 30%, anything more than that, and you're just going to get in fights, upset the people that you love. There's no kind of goodness past a small pocket of it. And I think really what I was thinking about is that, yes, I'm angry at all of these things that are exterior, but the way in which I deal with them, that's the problem, because everybody is living in the same society. Yes, some people are being hurt by things more than others because of the colour of their skin, sexual preference, whatever. But it's how you deal with that anger, with that upset, and I think that's on me.
And how do you deal with your anger?
Badly, clearly from the video. I'm getting better at it, but I think it's overwhelming to be going through so many different things. So yeah, like trying to get better at just taking a breath. There's a cool thing I learned recently. They say that like anger is like a bucket with holes in the bottom, right? And when you're angry, the bucket fills up with water. And if you want to get rid of that anger quickly, you can throw that water out, right? So you can throw punches and, like it can be dramatic and make a mess. Or you can take that bucket over the sink and leave it there and give it some peace. And the water will still leave, it will still drain out. It will take
more
time.
Slowly and more.
More slowly, but safely, no mess, So that's what I try and do now is instead of letting the water out straight away, I just take some time and just let it.
It sounds like a learning process.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process.
We talked about Georgetown, the song, and there's a feature with the poet John Eggert.
Yes.
And the line, I'm black like the key on the piano, white like the keys on the piano, is also based on his poem Half Caste,
yes.
which is also featured in the song.
Yeah.
So you talked about feeling, or do you feel torn about belonging and identity, like as the son of a black father and a white mother? Like we talked about that, but...
Hell yeah. Just, it's such a confusing thing because neither of my parents understand what I'm going through, And when you're young, you look to your parents. Those are the people that you need to help you navigate this world, right? They go, hey, you're just like me because you've come from me, so this is what I've been through, this is what you will go through. And that's a challenging thing, I think, that, the one thing I think, especially, people who are mixed race, but even any other. But I think, when you're othered for anything, and you don't feel the same as your parents, say if you are gay, if you are transgender, if you are mixed race, whatever the thing is, if you cannot look at your parents and go, we're going through the same thing, it kind of removes you from community. And I think that's the important thing that you want.
And it makes you feel lonely, probably.
Yeah, for sure. But, loads of people understand that, and I think, yes, this is my truth and this is the way that I feel othered, but being an other is, it's not a new thing and it's not specific to being mixed race. But yeah, I just think I was on a search and am on a search for community, for an understanding. And
as I remember, for Not Waving But Drowning, you drew inspiration from Stevie Smith's poem of the same name. And like in Georgetown, you also took inspiration from the poem. So why do you find so much inspiration in poetry? Or what does this art form do for you that other forms of art maybe cannot do?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't really separate poetry and rap, but poetry I think it has, in its rawest form, it has less structure sometimes and less parameters that it has to stay within. So it's really easy for it to be free flowing and challenging and a little bit more abrasive, So it really pushes boundaries and there's nothing to distract from the words. And for me, that's like my only thing. So the words are important.
But I feel like your music is always described as poetry in rap music or something like that. And you're also very often called Mr. Nice Guy in hip hop. What do you think about this description? I mean, do you see it as a compliment or is it rather...
No, I do see it as a compliment because I am a nice person. I wouldn't want to be seen as Mr. Bad Guy.
Better than Mr. Bad Guy.
Yeah. There was something annoying recently. There's a newspaper in the UK that just was not talking shit, but just they were like, it was just a bad article because they were basically saying, oh, I'm a nice guy and now I'm trying to be a bad guy. And that's not the case. The whole idea of me, putting a song like Hate Out or a video like that was just to show the beauty in the ugliness and that everybody is human. And, yes, I try my best to be a nice person. That's my goal. That's how my mum raised me. But, that's impossible every day.
Yeah,
yes, I get angry. Yes, I get upset. Yes, I'm disrespectful sometimes. I'm not a perfect human.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody is. So.
But I mean, anger is also not a bad feeling. I mean,
for sure,
it doesn't make you a bad person if you're angry.
Exactly. To be like, happiness is not about being happy every day. It's like, it's just human.
Yeah.
I'm a human. I'm a rap.
And whole different topic now.
Sure.
You were diagnosed with ADHD as a child, and you also run a cooking school for children and teens with ADHD, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like for some years now, awareness about the disease has been growing, and there are now many people, or many reports about wrong diagnoses, especially among young women, I feel like, and also wrong medication, etc. So why do you think the disease has been ignored for so long?
I don't know. It's funny because, where I grew up, it's like, I guess it's like a neurodiversity, but it's not really talked about. I don't know if I would see it as a disease. You know, I understand that it's like,
yeah, disease is maybe the wrong word.
No, but still, but this is, you know, this is part of it. Is that like these things are serious because it is, you know, it's not a mental illness, I would say, but it's like it's definitely a diversity. It's not neurotypical.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, I don't know, like the reason why it's taken so long to get to this point is, you know, if you have a broken leg, it's visual. People can see it. Oh, hey, you're injured. You're in trouble. You need help. But I think when you're going on with anything in your brain, sometimes you can still function to an extent. Yeah. And I just don't think people take it seriously. If you're lucky enough to have nothing going on, that, you know, if you just have a neurotypical brain, it's very difficult to imagine what it's like to have a brain that is, well, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say not only just more challenging, because it's also very useful for me. You know, I've really used ADHD.
Like in what kind of ways?
Yeah, like, so, okay, if you have ADHD, then you take risks without thinking things through, right? And that can be a negative thing if I do something stupid. But in my work, in the way I speak openly, candidly, when I speak to people, wearing my heart on my sleeve, these are all things that I don't think through in the moment. And if I did, I wouldn't release half the music. You know, I wouldn't shoot half the videos, or, you know, I don't know, I feel like it's allowed me an openness that I wouldn't have had if I had.
So you take more risks, or you feel like more impulsive?
Yeah, more impulsive for sure, more impulsive for sure. But, you know, my brain works quickly as well. You know, it's fucking fast.
Which is pretty cool.
This is cool, it's like a superpower.
Yeah.
You know? It's like exhausting. It's like, I don't know if you've seen X-Men, but you know, the guy in a chair, Charles Xavier.
Yeah.
Right? He's, you know, when he first gets his powers and he can hear everybody talking everywhere he goes, right? And it's overwhelming, and then he learns to control it. It's kind of like it's kind of that kind of thing, right? That you're like, wow, okay, I don't know what's going on. There's some thoughts over here, there's some thoughts over here, there's some mathematical equations up here, whatever. And then at one point, when you kind of are able to like hold it, then it's
a superpower.
Yeah, then it's a superpower. So I'm not really there yet, but I'm getting there.
Also learning process, probably.
It is a process. But yeah, I just think it's important for kids to see someone like myself, you know, and at the cooking school in particular, just to get positive reinforcement. Because when I was young, you know, I was always told like I wasn't really going to do much because my ADHD would get in the way, or my dyslexia would get in the way. And it's not good.
And now you're here. So
here I am.
And how do you think we can create more awareness about ADHD? I mean, you do a good job, and I mean, other artists, I think, are finally speaking out. But what do you think can be done more?
I mean, the main place is at schools, man, because teachers get such a bad reputation, and I think it's bullshit, because teachers really saved my life over and over again. My mum is a teacher, I'm my girlfriend, but also, you know, like at school, some incredible teachers were the reason that I was able to achieve the things that I've achieved so far. I just think more funding, more funding for schools, more funding for teachers, like more respect on teachers. Like over lockdown, teachers were essentially like childminders, mentors, spiritual healers, you know, educators, all of these things rolled into one. I think giving teachers the space and the ability and the facility,
and the resources,
because if you have a neurodiversity, then you are challenging to teach. So you need to have someone else in your class who can focus on that student, you know? Yeah.
I feel like in the current hip hop scene, it has become like standard to release as much music and as fast as possible. And except for a few singles, you've been quite musically absent for the last 3 years. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel kind of pressure about releasing the new album now?
Yeah, I think there's a pressure to keep, you know, like feeding the beast, you know, like because there's a whole conversation about being relevant, and you have to stay relevant. And then I was talking to this kid, Atian, who's on my album actually, and he said something really beautiful to me. He was just talking about, he was like, yo, you could be relevant or you can be revolutionary, and you cannot be both. And I chose revolutionary. So hopefully it does that. Because if I'm not relevant and I'm not revolutionary, then I've fucked up. But yeah, I think you have to take time in between your work to allow for new stuff to come. I think if you're just on a conveyor belt of giving people stuff all the time,
yeah.
Yes, people are getting music from you, but it's not going to be very good.
Yeah, of course.
Or at least for me.
No, I think so too. I feel like it's a trend that's, I hope that it will disappear again someday, because like you say, I think the art is getting worse if you just like release and release and release and don't really think about it.
I think that it's not, maybe the art is getting worse for some people. I think more is the artists. The artists are getting worse. You know, like they're getting hurt. Like loads of my friends, like when I go on Instagram now, which is not very often, when I go on there, you know, like the other day I seen Sam Fender, Arlo Parks, my good friend Tom Mish, all these people like, hey, I was on tour and I'm mentally exhausted, so I cannot do this anymore. You know, I've been releasing music and traveling and blah, 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 and interviews. Yeah, I think that's really where I'm scared is. The music, I think, will always be okay because people will always make it for the right reasons at some point in their career. But like, the artists are, you know, they're just people, man. Yeah. So like,
they're not machines.
No. Yeah. But I think people see themselves as machines, you know, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. We talked about Georgetown and also like you reconnected with your father, as you said. I don't know, like what made you make this decision, or how is it now that you're in like real contact with your father again? I'm a father myself. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, I just felt it was important. You know, my son is mixed race also, and I know from not really being with, like, hanging out with my dad when I was young, that is what I really missed out on was one, just father, like that kind of father figure that understands some of the shit you're going through, but like to see my black history, you know, to see my lineage and so I just wanted my son to grow up and see the black side of his family and feel close to them and connected to them. So that was it. So it was kind of selfless, but in the end, I really got a lot from it because I, you know, gained a relationship with my father.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it must have been hard to like take that step.
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah,
it was scary for sure. I think, you know, in hip hop as well, in rap, it's such a tired thing now of like, you know, guys hate their dads let them down, they fucking hate them, they love their mums, and that's it. And for me, it was like, okay, you know, I've taken a lot from hip hop. You know, I made money, I've traveled the world, and when I was making this album, I was really thinking, what can I give back to this culture? And the one thing was like to offer this idea of forgiveness. You know, because it's exhausting. Hating your dad is exhausting. Yeah. Every day, it's like you got this chip on your shoulder. So yeah, that's my hope for this album. If it doesn't do anything else, it's just to allow men and women like a space to forgive. You know, like to set themselves free.
About forgiveness, I was wondering, like, because in your new song, Nobody Knows, there's also like this gospel sample in the background. Yep. And gospel is some, like a musical style element that you choose, like, well, I feel like it's a usual style for you, maybe. So I was wondering, would you say you're a religious person? Because you were talking about forgiveness now, and I mean, it's... But
not
maybe,
really. Like some of my friends are. You know, I got a lot of friends. I've understood more of the beauty in humanity, in religion. But I've always found I really love working with gospel music because of that. Because I feel quite disenfranchised by religion, you know, and feel let down. But you know, if there's anyone out there, I don't really know necessarily if they've had my back. Yeah. And so I love to work with gospel because it's such a nice juxtaposition of, you know, you're hearing this.
And it's so beautiful.
This hopeful choir singing about God, Jesus, or whatever, and then you kind of have me being quite negative, and so I think they work really well together. Yeah. But yeah, you know, I'm spiritual for sure. I like to think there's something. I would like to think that, you know, I'm getting older as well, so there better be something.
Yeah, hope so too. Yeah. And yeah, so you were saying you've become a father, and I wanted to know, like, what has changed? Like, how do you perceive the world now? Maybe your songwriting process, what has changed, like, with this new experience?
Just the world is so big through little eyes, and I think I just, you know, like the other day I was walking, and there was a chair like this chair, but it was red, and I was walking down the street with my son, and I walked right, and the sun was like hitting all these chairs, right? And I was walking past them, I didn't think about it at all. My son stopped and turned around, he was like, wow, look. And the sun was like going through the back of this chair, and just creating like this little, like a patchwork red, like glowing sun on the floor, right? And we were there for like 20 minutes just looking at it, looking at the details. Yeah, but it's beautiful. And I think all it's done is help me slow down and see just the beauty in it every day.
Yeah.
And remember that that's the point.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not, before my son was born, I was just charging from place to place, from interview to interview or work to work. And now like the bits in between are my favorite bits, you know, when I'm not busy. I used to love being busy. Now I love it when I'm not busy. Yeah.
And you were saying like, the question before that you're kind of a negative person. Is that still true? Like being a father now? I mean, I feel like
I'm a tired person. No. I'm not negative. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not negative. I just think it's allowed me to be more positive and more hopeful. And I think, you know, just like it just cuts your ego down, and you take yourself less seriously.
Yeah.
You're a bit, I guess, a little bit more forgiving of yourself as well, because you have to be, because you're making mistakes every day.
All the time, probably.
Yeah, parents are they're making mistakes all the time, and you feel for your. It's just, it's nice for someone else to be the most important thing in my life and not myself, you know.
And when you think about like how the world is, or like the political events of this world, would you say you're a pessimistic person or an optimistic person?
Optimistic, for sure, optimistic. Yeah, I just think, you know, the world is in good hands. Like, I try my best to spend as much time as I can with people who are younger than me, you know, which is like, especially in the world of creating, because I think that's where the new ideas and the exciting way of thinking is coming from. And when I spend time with, you know, like Etienne, Wesley Joseph, Olivia Dean, like all these people, artists, thinkers, political thinkers, social thinkers, like, everybody is working towards a common goal. You know, I don't spend any time with any like Tory kids though, so maybe they're still saying the world is fucked. But from where I am sat, like I feel hopeful.
That's pretty good. I feel like that's very unusual these days, that someone is optimistic about the future.
Yo, man, like you think about the people that you spend time with, right? Like it's just about those people getting together, mobilizing, and understanding, realizing the power that they have.
Yeah.
But no, I'm hopeful completely. If I wasn't hopeful, what's the point?
Yeah, that's true.
I have a son. I have a chance with my son as well. I get to be, if I can educate my son in the way I would like to, and make sure that he's polite and humble and giving, then that will rub off on his friends. Yeah. They come over for sleepovers. I get to, you know, get political on there. Stand in front of the TV with my beret.
I definitely see that.
Yeah, me too, sadly.
I think I have one question left. Because you once described the songs on your last album as kitchen sink dramas.
Yep.
So like stories in which the domestic life becomes like the scenic focus. So to what extent does this style still fit your new songs, you would say?
I think it still does, because that's kind of where my inspiration has come from. You know, it's really like, the album is about me and my father, you know, and the conversations we had whilst we were reconnecting, you know, and the time we spent together. So the story in itself is very small. It's about me learning to drive. You know, my dad, I couldn't drive. I needed to drive because my son was about to be born, and the only person who could teach me was my dad. And so we reconnected. We were sat in his car, you know, for hours on end every week, talking. And first it's very angry, which is why the first songs on the album is very angry, you know, and then slowly as the conversations go on, begins to show me his side and his views and his regrets. And so it's, like if it was a movie, it would just be like me and my dad in the car.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
For talking to me today.
Thank you for such lovely questions.
And I hope you have a nice day with all the interviews left.
I can't wait, it's fun. It's a good time.